Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour finals in 2020. So we are now in the game 6 of the second day. After 4 rapid games the result was equal. In the game 5 the game ended in a draw, so now we are in the game 6. Whoever wins this game, it was a blitz game, 5+3. So whoever wins this game will be the winner of the second day. And if the game ends in a draw, then we will have the so-called Armageddon game. So there is one problem. I have to talk about this psychological problem when you're on the winning side and then you lose suddenly one game. It happened to me, for instance, in one tournament. I started the tournament and I had 5 winning games. And then I lost a game, the 6th game, and I couldn't win a game to the rest of the tournament. So it has to do something about psychology. It has there are these feelings when you play chess. When you lose a game, then you still are shaken about this game, then you still think about this game, go to the next game still thinking about this last game that you lost. And I think it happened now to Hikaru Nakamura. Hikaru played great so far. He got out of openings very easily against Magnus Carlsen preparations. He had a great opening preparations in the Queen's Gambit decline. Even in this game that he lost against Magnus in the English opening, I've analyzed the games. You can also check it out on my YouTube chess channel. I think that Hikaru went out of the opening very, very well, and he suddenly lost the game, and now he has, I think, this psychological problems against Magnus Carlsen in the continuation of this match game. So let's check out now this game 6 and we'll see what happens. So it's round 6 and fight, of course. E4 played by Hikaru. E5, knight to F3, knight to C6, bishop to B5. The Rui Lopez. After knight to F6 we have the Berlin defense, and here Hikaru plays the exchange variation with bishop takes C6. We have D takes C6 and D3. So we're protecting the pawn. And it comes also with the idea how to play against the bishop pair. When your opponent has the bishop pair, you don't have the bishop pair, then it's very important to build sort of a fortress on that squares. For instance, we have given up our light square bishop. Now it's time to build our fortress on light squares, maybe even with h3. What the good thing about this white's idea is that we have still a comfortable and calm pawn structure. It is a fixed pawn structure. On the other hand, black has this double pawn structure on c7 and c6. What white should do in this particular position is to simplify the position. So going into an endgame can be a strategical element of the middle game. So if this game goes into an endgame without maybe the minor piece on the board, without maybe the queens or rooks on off the board, then white could have a good endgame because white has the better pawn structure. So, but still, the bishop pair is not something that you should underestimate. The bishop pair is always good in the beginning, at least. It is still an open position, but it's a static open position, sort of. I have to explain to you what I mean about that. First of all, it's an open position because there are many squares in the center which we can occupy, but the position is still static because pawn moves are not possible in the center. So d4 is not a possibility, c5 and maybe c4 is also not a possibility. It has to be prepared. So far the position of the pawn structure is static in the center. Pawn moves are not possible, so it's all about positional trades of pieces and going into maybe some endgame. So bishop to d6 played by Magnus. We have knight to d2 and now bishop to g4. h3. This idea I've analyzed also in one game between Wesley So and Magnus Carlsen. h3 and bishop to h5. Now we want to remaneuver our knight. Knight to c4, knight to c4, knight to e3, and then knight to f5, knight to g3. This maneuver of the knight is possible. Many moves are by the knight are possible because, as I said, the pawn structure is static. You should basically avoid to play many times with your pieces, but so far it is a possibility because black cannot counterplay in the center. Black cannot prepare, for instance, a d5 move, which would of course crack the position because black played d takes c6. So far the knight maneuver is possible. Knight to c4. The idea behind this knight to e3, knight to e3, knight to f5, knight to g3 idea is to kick away the bishop without further playing the move g4. This g4 would weaken the pawn structure further, so that's why here Hikaru plays this knight maneuver. Knight to d7, knight to e3, as I said, knight to f8, and now knight to f5. What Magnus is trying also is to create an outpost by himself. Knight to e6, knight to d4, or maybe knight to f4 are of course the clear targets. These are the weak square in black's position, so you should occupy them. So knight to f5, we have knight to e6, and now g4. kicking away the bishop. Maybe knight to g6 is also a possibility, but then I believe knight to f4 could happen. Still, maybe retreating with the bishop is a possibility, bishop to g6. In the game g4, played by Hikaru, bishop to g6, and now bishop to e3. c5 by Magnus. What he wants to do is maybe crack the position on light squares with the potential c4. It has to be further prepared. So far, it's not possible. We have c3, played by Hikaru, and now queen to d7, queen to c2, queenside castling, and now queenside castling. When we watch White's pawn structure, it's this so-called Boleslavsky wall setup, but from White's perspective, it's this setup. It could be a problem. Sometimes you have the d3 weakness, but this setup is a very important restriction idea of White's. We are not allowing Black to occupy, maybe get our knight, get his knight here to c4, get his knight here to d4. So the restriction idea of this flexible pawn structure is very important here. Still, you would love, of course, to advance the pawn because it's still a backward pawn. On d3, we would love to play something like d4, but it has to be prepared. So f6, here king to b1, king to b8, improving the position of the king. And now d4 is a little bit too rushed, I think, because now Magnus can undouble his pawns. As I said, our main strength was the pawn structure, and now we lose the main strength and going into bishops into an endgame where still Black has the bishop pair. Magnus simply undoubles his pawns. He solves his positional problems after c takes d4, e takes d4, knight to d4, knight takes, rook takes d4, and now bishop to f5. If you play g takes f5, then of course again you leave yourself a backward pawn. Now it's White that has a weakness in the position, so that's why e takes f5 was played. But now you see suddenly Magnus has the better pawn structure because okay, White has a 4 versus 3 situation on the king side, but it's hard to create your pass pawn. Now if this game goes into an endgame, Black would have a winning endgame. If you could just imagine this position without queens, rooks, bishops on the board, then it's a winning endgame here for Black, because Black will create here a pass pawn situation in this 3 versus 2 battle on the queen side. On the king side, here Black could make a blockade sort of with his pawns where White couldn't create maybe a pass pawn situation. So it's a huge strategical advantage that Black has here. Maybe this endgame is not such a complex endgame, but still I would love rather to be Black here, because now suddenly White has lost his advantage in the game after e takes f5, h5. Magnus cracks simply the position, breaks really the pawn structure. We have rook to d1, we have h takes g, h takes g4, and still you see again we have a 3 versus 2 situation here on the king side, but again these are double pawns. Again, White cannot create a pass pawn situation here. So queen to e7, we have queen to a4, and now b6, simply fixing the position, also with preparations to play the move c5. Here queen to c6, played by Hikaru, and now bishop to e5, attacking the rook, rook to d7, and now rook takes d7, rook takes d7, and now queen to b4. Very nice attacking move here by Magnus, with ideas of course to play queen to e1. In the game bishop to d4, here Hikaru is trying to simplify the position, but Magnus plays simply bishop to d6, and this is a very, very important move because it gives Black the opportunity to also to get this rook into the game. And this rook is locked. That's the main problem. The queen is protecting the rook, so no sacrifices are possible on d6. And here comes the critical moment of the game, and the game was over. In this particular moment, Hikaru played the move queen to e4. He is trying, of course, to cover the first rank here on e1, but now Magnus plays move, and Hikaru immediately resigns. Pause the video and let's test our mic. So test your mic, then find the winning move here for Magnus Carlsen. He saw it, of course. It's a good idea here. It's queen to a4. It's a double attack, of course, on the rook, and also here with queen to d1 ideas to get checkmate. So if you try to cover everything, you get to even checkmate it with rook to h1. So the better idea instead of this queen to e4 is maybe to play bishop to e3 after something like maybe a check. We could cover with bishop to c1 or queen to c1, but still it's a better position here for Black. There are these background problems with which white should handle. And as I said, after the move queen to e4, it was game over. Queen to a4. Great performance again by Magnus Carlsen. And that's what I talked about, this psychology in chess. I think Hikaru is broken now because he played such great games so far, and he lost now the second match game today, another match game between the two of them. As I said, it's the best out of 7. Who wins the 4 match games will be the winner of this very, very nice tournament. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. It was again a blunder by Hikaru. I'm not sure what's going on now with him. I wish him all of the best. We need a great Hikaru because I really want this match game to last for this 7 games. I don't care who wins, but I want to see really 7 days of pure magic here by the two legends, Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen, because they are really the best players in 2020 so far. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game, and meanwhile you can watch my other commented chess games from this tournament. Here is the link, and if you want to see the best chess games of all time, check out my best chess games of all time series. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best.